Hey, this is Don for Padlock Technologies again with another video. This video is going to be on a email I got about showing HA on a FortiGate. Now, again, out of all the firewalls, next generation firewalls that are out in the market, FortiGate is probably the easiest out of all of them to do pretty much every next generation firewall feature and to do HA in, right? HA is ridiculously simple. Now, I did an overview video of FortiGate, so if you're watching this video first, I'll put a card up here, probably gonna be over my face. That's pointing to the overview video of the FortiGate. Watch that first before you watch this video, so you can get some basic understanding about FortiGate firewalls and GUI setup and all that good stuff, right? But this specific video is going to be HA and the key differences between HA on Palo Altos, FTDs and checkpoints, right? So let's first look at the rocking the hair real quick, and let's look at what we're actually doing on where we are in the lab here. So as you saw in the last video, I had one FortiGate, right? This time I have two. This is going to be a active passive setup. Again, I believe that there are very few reasons to use active active. They're kind of like corner case scenarios. That's my belief. Most people are fine with, I would say 99.9% of people. I'm highballing that a little bit. Let me say 95% of people that are going to have redundancy on the firewall are going to be in a active passive or active standby setup. Rarely are you going to use clustering for FTDs or active active Palo Alto or active active on FortiGates or cluster XL, active active and cluster XL. Most of the time it's going to be active standby. So what we got here is, now technically you do not need two ports here, right? Same thing on FTDs, you kind of don't need two ports, but I usually separate the two because one's a heartbeat, one's for synchronization. Um, our stateful information, they call it a stateful link on the FTD ASA side, and then they have the failover heartbeat link. I usually separate those two. And then you on the FortiGate, you can have one interface for your heartbeat, right? But I'm using two, and you're going to see when I go into the GUI, when you use two, you can set the priority of which one you want to be the primary heartbeat link. And then if that goes down, obviously the secondary kicks in. Now, I don't see that feature on other firewalls, right? Picking a priority for your heartbeat lane. But again, that's FTD's, not FTD's, that's FortiGate's implementation of HA. So what we got here is we have the primary, we have the secondary. Now, based on the priority number, the higher the number, is going to be the primary, right? So I think it's 128 is the highest number you can be. So usually I'll do 128 and 100 as the secondary, so that when they do the sync, it will pick primary as the primary firewall in the active standby or active passive setup. Now, there is one caveat to this. Once you do HA, on the FortiGate. It's not like Palo Alto where you can technically log into the secondary and see who's the primary on the other side. You will actually lose management access to the secondary. So you won't be able to get into the GUI and see anything, right? So you're really only working off of the primary at that point. So you lose all GUI access to it, right? Until obviously the failover happens. So right now, my FTD primary is .9, the secondary is .10, and when you go to .10, it just times out. So you have no access to it. So let's go ahead and take a look in here. Log in. Again, we already seen that in this GUI in the intro video, and we're going to go directly to HA. So to get in here, now you could do it from the GUI if you want. I mean, from the CLI if you want, but you got access to GUI, just do it there. Being a CLI ninja is, I love being a CLI ninja, but if it's easy, if I can do it in 10 seconds on the GUI, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, you're the best because you can do it in the CLI. And 9 times out of 10 with these next generation firewalls, you can't really do it in the CLI anymore, at least on the FTD side, right? Palos, Fortinet, and checkpoints, you still can configure HA in the CLI. So we go to HA right here. So we go to system, and then HA. Now I already have HA set up, but what we're going to do here is we're going to go to edit, and this is pretty much the HA setup. I showed you this briefly in the last video, but this is, we're going to select our mode, which is active passive. This device is 128. The other one I believe is 100. I gave it the group name FortiHA. Give it a password. You say session pickup. So that's the synchronization of the sessions. The interfaces that I'm monitoring is the WAN and the LAN port. So if any one of those goes down, HA will happen. The heartbeat interface, since I have two, this heartbeat interface priority comes up, right? If I only had one, this wouldn't come up. But since I have two, I'm basically saying, hey, the higher the priority, the better, right? So if you hit this, interface with the highest priority is preferred. So my heartbeat link is port 2, and then port 3 is the standby heartbeat link. Once you hit OK, the two devices, one will be, your primary will be in green, but your secondary will be X'd out like this, right? It'll be a red X there. Eventually, you will lose access to the GUI of the secondary, and then this will turn green, right? So they're synchronized. Now, the good thing about this is FortiGate does put a little GUI up here to kind of show you what ports are your heartbeat link and your monitoring link. So the one with the eyeball here, if you can see it, there's a little eyeball right up here that says monitoring, right? So actually, if you open up this and you look at the bottom where it says HA role, you say HA monitoring interface, monitor interface, and then for HA monitor interface, right? And then we have a heartbeat link. It tells you right there, HA role is the heartbeat link, and then HA role is the heartbeat link. Right. So this is a little nice thing that FortiGate does do to show you what is your heartbeat links versus your monitoring links. Now, when all that said is done, you see it says HA primary here. So it will tell you right from the rip what box you're on. Right. And again, you can't get to the secondary from a GUI standpoint. So if I were to go to 22, 168, 1910. As you see, eventually this is going to time out, right? And it's going to time out eventually because management is on the primary. So back to this. Now that we're synced here, the serial number will sync up. It'll tell you the sync time, all that good stuff there. So now when you configure things from an interface standpoint, it'll look like the same thing we did on the last video. So we have the ports, right? Port 4 is my LAN. Port 1 is my WAN port. I have my two zones. I did adjust the interfaces, so I added more interfaces because what I want to do in later videos is I want to show you how to do a firewire, how to do port. I'm actually configure a port channel, but I'll show you how to do firewires in the next video on a FortiGate, which is pretty much firewire on Palo Altos and inline sets on FTDs. All right. We don't have FortiLink in here. We have our DHCP client here. So I know out of the leases, I know exactly what's coming up here. So if I were to go to interfaces, or let's go to do dashboard and DHCP, which is somewhere down here somewhere. Here we go, DHCP monitor. Here's my DHCP again coming in. Everything's good from that point. And then my policies, I have my central NAT. Again, watch the previous video with that card I just put up in the beginning. Tells you all about centralized NAT. I have central NAT going. I have my firewall policies, super basic firewall policies, sort of what I set up in the last video, but I want to just strictly show you with the HA, right? So that's really how you do HA on an FT. If I say FTD one more time, on a Fortinet or FortiGate firewall. This is the easiest one to set up out of all the firewalls, right? And I've shown you multiple firewalls now. So if I were to rank like what's the easiest to set up from a active standby HA perspective, I will say Fortinet's the top as the easiest to configure. Then Palo Alto and FTDs are neck and neck. If you have knowledge, a little bit of knowledge in both, right? Now, let's say you're just coming in and you're trying to kind of figure it out, then I would put FTD just slightly above Palo Alto. Like, I mean, literally like a hair, razor hair thin over Palo Alto. Checkpoint Cluster XL, if you don't know Checkpoint, is, again, the logic is a little different. and it can get kind of wonky when you do cluster XL, right? So checkpoint is probably the hardest one to start with if you want to learn how to do HA on that. Um, Fortinet's the easiest, and then Cisco slightly above PA. So hopefully that answers your question. This is Don from Padlock Technologies again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe to the channel for more tech stuff like this. If you have any questions, there's going to be a video bumper at the end where you can send me some questions. I always say this in every video. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And if I can answer it, I'll tell you that I am doing a video response to your request. So keep them questions coming in. And then hopefully you'll see this video probably sooner than later. Don from Padlock Technologies again. Thank you and have a nice day.